Welcome to the SVG-TV Evening News and Sports for Thursday, January 30th, 2014. I'm Khalil Kato with the details. The St. Vincent and the Grenadines Electricity Company Limited, VINLEC, is today making it clear that the possible increase in fuel surcharge in the months ahead, which was announced last week, is not to meet the needs of is not to meet the cost of repair works on its damaged hydro plants. At a media conference today, Chief Executive Officer of the company, Thornley Myers, explained that the increase in the fuel surcharge is as a result of the company not being able to generate as much electricity as it would have normally wanted because of the damage to 3 of its hydro plants during the December 2013 floods. He further explains that having to pay more for fuel not being generated by the company naturally means the surcharge will go up.
Nothing to do with the repairs. Whatever repairs in our facilities that have to be done would have to be done by resources VINLEC generates internally or that VINLEC borrows to do these repairs. So I want to first and foremost say to our customers, VINLEC will not and cannot use monies received from the fuel surcharge to do repairs on its facilities. That's the first thing, essentially, doubt that I want to clarify for those who misinterpreted what we said last week.
Myers says last year the company spent just over $72 million in fuel and that its hydro plants saved the company over $13.7 million.
If VINLEC did not have its hydro facilities last year, we would have spent just over $86 million in fuel for the generation of electricity. So, therefore, clearly, you can see if we have no hydro, what is the impact of the absence of hydro on our fuel surcharge? Because the money we collect from fuel surcharge, as we've mentioned on several occasions, goes directly for the payment of fuel used for the generation of electricity. That has always been so. It is so today, and I believe for the foreseeable future, that's how it will be. All monies collected under the ambit of the fuel surcharge goes for the payment of fuel. None of that money remains with VINLEC. VINLEC cannot consider it revenue to be used for other operational activities. So that is clear.
Up to last Friday, Myers says the damaged hydro plants were still out of commission. Real economic activity in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union is projected to increase by 1.9% this year. That's according to the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the ECCB, Sir Dwight Venner, while delivering the ECCU 2013 Economic Review on Tuesday. Sir Dwight noted that this increase is being projected against the backdrop of the positive signs in the global economy, but cognizant of the recent setback in some Eastern Caribbean countries, such as St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
The expansion in economic activity is expected to be supported by higher levels of output in the construction, hotels and restaurants, wholesale and retail, and transport, storage, and communication sectors. This level of growth is, however, still below the target growth rate of 3 to 5% established by the Monetary Council as the rate needed to transform the economies, and is unsustainable given the prominence of the non-tradable sectors as contributors to growth.
According to the governor, looking ahead, there are 3 possible scenarios which confront the currency union and will weigh heavily on the decisions to be taken.
1. The global economy remains in its relatively low growth, high unemployment mode, particularly in our main trading partners, while the ECCU countries continue with their current policies. 2. Economic activity in the global economy does not return to its pre-crisis levels, while the ECCU makes significant policy adjustments. And 3. The global economy goes through substantial restructuring and rebalancing, and the ECCU undergoes significant socio-economic transformation.
With the start of the 2014 reaping season for arrowroot, the Ministry of Agriculture is encouraging more farmers here to get involved with the production of this root crop. As we know it, arrowroot is a versatile crop that is being used for many purposes. In this report, SVG-TV's Narissa Sandy takes a look at the different stages at the grinding factory at Orange Hill, which leads to the production of arrowroot starch, a high-end commodity on several markets, including the U.S.
Processing of the rhizomes from the arrowroot plant for the execution of arrowroot starch requires a lot of water for washing. Water that's seen here in this canal comes from a nearby river that is only used for washing the rhizomes, to remove sand, root fibers and stones. In this detailed aspect of production and productivity, the first stage of cleaning begins when the rhizomes are dumped and soaked into this pot. A large elevated chain is then seen separating the fibers, stones and sand from the crop. Rhizomes from the elevated chain are deposited here into this paddle washer comprised of 4 chambers to create further separation of the rhizomes from the stones. In this next phase, a visual inspection is conducted for the removal of foreign matter, after which they are pushed down into the barrel washer that has an attached steel mesh for the removal of fiber sheet from the rhizome. When this is done, the remainder of the rhizomes is then moved through this mill seen here.
We are at the number 1 mill, the coast mill. So the rhizomes first goes into the coast mill where it is shredded, mixed with water, from the coast mill to the fine mill where it is further shredded and mixed with water.
This mill comprises of 3 vibrating screens that causes the rhizomes to become finer. Here in this room, the starch is allowed to settle before being drained and taken to the smelter, which manager of the Arrowroot Association, Caldrick Brown, says will be used
almost at the end of processing. When we remove the starch, the wet starch, it is brought to this point where it is mixed, it will be mixed with water, re-washed and melt and allowed to settle in those vats.
The material that settles at the top and bottom is collected, re-washed and used as madongo. This year, the Arrowroot Association is hoping to spread the production of arrowroot dominated on the windward side and the interior of the island to the leeward coast. And with several mechanisms and techniques now in place, it is the hope that this year, over 25 acres of land will be under arrowroot production as the demand for the product grows. Narissa Sandy reporting for SVG-TV News.
Meanwhile, farmer Leslie Nero, who cultivated 30,000 pounds of rhizomes from just 2.5 acres of land this year, is encouraging other farmers in the country to get on board with arrowroot production.
And next year I'm planning to put in another half acre, which I will want to produce next year over 50,000 pounds. So I just want to encourage other farmers to follow in my footsteps so that I can make the earnings that I'm making right now.
Beekeepers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines will gather for a meeting on Monday, February 3rd, to plan and develop programs for the apicultural industry. They will meet at the Fisheries Division Conference Room from 1:30 p.m. with officials of the Ministry of Agriculture and the standing members of the SVG Beekeepers Association to look at the 2014 program. Apicultural Officer Alan Williams has indicated that there will be a number of important issues on the agenda, which include the presentation of the 2013 accomplishments, presentation, discussion and determination of the targets identified for 2014, and update the status of all 54 registered beekeepers here. The SVG Beekeepers Association was registered in 2013, 7 years after its formation in 2006. It now comprises of 22 members strong, with a number of the large commercial honey producers. SVG is said to have a total of 477 hives, producing over 154 gallons of honey per year. Exportation of honey recommenced in 2013. Flood-affected residents in the Spring Village area were the second batch of persons to receive appliances, including stoves, fridges and mattresses, under the government's disaster relief distribution program. Representatives of the various business houses involved with the program were on hand to witness the distribution, including Digicel, who is providing the funding for the appliances. The residents were also given a voucher to get gas cylinders by Rubis refilled free of cost. Speaking at the handing over, Minister of Transport and Works Julian Francis said donations will soon be made to surrounding villages as well as to those on the windward side. Earlier today, the distribution exercise was taken to Vermont. Affected persons in Pembroke and Bookament were the first recipients. And while delivering the 2013 Economic Review Report, Governor of the ECCB, Sir Dwight Venner, expressed his sympathy to the people of SVG and the other 2 islands which were affected by December 24th's trough system. Sir Dwight said the thought of those at the central bank are particularly with the families who lost loved ones and suffered injuries. He noted that the monetary cost of the damage sustained as a percentage of GDP is tremendous and comes at a time when countries can least afford it.
However, resilience and fortitude are long-standing components of the fabric of our people, and we are confident that we will individually and collectively rise again like the proverbial phoenix from the ashes of this latest catastrophe. The following quotation from Napoleon Hill should give us further encouragement. Quote, "Every adversity, every failure, and every heartbreak carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit."
Sir Dwight said it is no secret that 2013 was another challenging year for the currency union.
Our member countries are still grappling with low economic growth, persistent fiscal deficits, rising debt levels, high unemployment, and poverty rates, and some fragility in the financial sector. Once again, the structural characteristics of our countries, namely small size, extreme openness, and high vulnerability to external shocks and natural disasters, have become more evident.
And SVG's ambassador to the United Nations, Lecelia Prince, joined other ambassadors and permanent representatives of St. Lucia and Dominica in a press conference in Washington, D.C. to bring attention to their plights after the aftermath of the Christmas disaster. Over a period of 4 hours from the evening of December 24th to the wee hours of Christmas morning, the 3 islands were affected by a low-level, high-impact trough system that, for the most part, went undetected until it made landfall. SVG was reported as the hardest hit. The sudden torrential rains caused flooding in a number of areas across SVG, severe damage to the road network, loss of agricultural crops, and the loss of 9 lives, with 3 persons still unaccounted for. Ambassador Prince told the news conference that with a population of 110,000 persons and with more than 13,000 people directly affected by the storm, 14% of SVG's population is still reeling from the impact. The OAS Secretary General and Assistant Secretary General were also on hand at the news conference and made an initial financial contribution of $20,000 to each of the affected countries. The 50-year-old Bishop's College Kingstown today remembered its founder, Bishop Harold Grant Pigott, with a march through the streets of Kingstown, which was immediately followed by a wreath-laying ceremony. The institution is celebrating its 50th anniversary for the first 6 months of 2014 under the theme Celebrating 50 Years of Molding Individuals and Communities Academically, Socially, Morally, and Spiritually. The procession commenced at the school grounds in Paul's Avenue, onto Back Street, down Bay Street, and culminating at the St. George's Cathedral. The procession included the staff and student body of the BCK, past students, the Board of Governors, members of the clergy, and uniformed bodies, namely the Girl Guides, peer councillors, and the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force. The floral tributes were laid by the Reverend Patrick McIntosh, Dean of the St. George's Cathedral and Chairman of the Board of Governors of the Bishop's College Kingstown, past student of the BCK, Cheryl Adams, present student, Nicola Batiste, and principal of the school, Cecilia Akers King. Meanwhile, the tribute to the late Harold Grant Pigott was made by the Reverend C. Leopold Friday, Bishop of the Windward Islands.
Grant Pigott, Bishop, responded faithfully to the call of God to be a priest in his church. And he served in this diocese and in Grenada. He is rector of the parish of St. George and Archdeacon of Grenada. It was from there that he was elected as Bishop of the Diocese of the Windward Islands and was consecrated in 1962, and he served to 1969. So during this period that Bishop Pigott had the vision founded on the Anglican belief that we are all called to participate in God's mission to the world, and that this mission is not restricted to members of the church only, but to the wider community, that it must be extended to all, and that education is part of this mission.
A young Vincentian chef is said to be making waves in the Big Apple, New York City. Kamal Rose is one of a number of chefs preparing gourmet meals for the occasion of America's premier sporting event, the National Football League's NFL Super Bowl, being held this Sunday in New York. Rose, the executive chef at the prestigious Tribeca Grill in New York, and his fellow chefs are participating in a series of fundraising events called the Taste of the NFL, aimed at raising awareness and funds for hunger relief organizations in the USA. In honor of their contribution, leading figures from the Taste, including Rose, were invited on Tuesday to be among the dignitaries participating in the traditional closing ceremony of the New York Stock Exchange. He is also featured in the January 27th issue of the very popular People magazine with his recipe on New York-style cheesecakes, which he is preparing for the Taste's pre-Super Bowl party on February 1st.